Welcome to another episode of devtool them all. Today we're going to devtool ChatGPT, a very brilliant model, actually chatbot developed and trained by OpenAI that allows you to have a natural conversation with this bot and answers questions. It does a lot of stuff. So it's pretty impressive technology. So how about we actually jump into it? So what we're going to do here is go to chat.openai.com and hit enter. So before we hit enter, I had to preserve the log because there is a redirection that I want to capture. I want to see exactly what's happening. You know, that's the DDoS protection that is provided by Cloudflare, which is the CDN and the reverse proxy in front of OpenAI, ChatGPT at least. And I'm also disabling the cache so I can see everything as a cold hit effectively. Let's go ahead and hit enter. All right, you can see that now there was a redirection that happened. I don't know if you saw the screen, but there was like a blinking, that's redirection, and then blinked for a second, and then it redirected as again, refresh the page again. We're getting a bunch of errors here. It seems like these are by design, right? These are forbidden errors. Although I am already logged in, and the fact that I'm logged in, my cookies should have been sent. But it seems like there is an error that happens, and it happens in every single session that is new for me. And it's just odd that it's actually returning a forbidden, which triggers another request to reload the page. So that's what I noticed. Not a big deal. You feel it for a second, but it's not really a huge deal. So we're loading that. And then after that, we are making the actual request. If you notice these, whenever you see this rainbow, different colors, green, orange, purple, that indicates a new connection. So from what you see, we made 2 connections to different domains. That's it. This is really rare. A site that makes only 2 connections. The reason, it's actually a 1 connection, but the reason that the second connection was attempted is just because of this Cloudflare captcha thing that I was not effectively prompted. But sometimes you might be prompted for a captcha if it thinks you're not a human. Ironically, you're talking to a robot and it wants to know if you're a human. All right. So that said, this is the connection request to ChatGPT website. Right? Took 64 milliseconds. Add a little bit of extra milliseconds because I'm using a VPN here. So there is like a couple of milliseconds, maybe 10 milliseconds extra, give or take. That's the encryption of the IP layer, the VPN client and the server side. By server, I mean Express VPN servers. So here there's a DNS lookup, 64. Just look and give me the IP address. Then create the connection. And always, my pet peeve, this is part of this. So initial connection includes the SSL, which is the TLS handshake, right? So if you want to find out how much the TCP handshake took in this particular case, you have to deduct 96 minus 53. And then, of course, once we sent the request to get that page, it took us 58 milliseconds to get the first byte. I think waiting for the server response is the TTFB, the time to first byte, and the rest is this is how long it took us to download. Right? I might be wrong on that one. Right? So nothing fancy here. And before we go further, going through the security, they're using TLS 1.3 with the 25519, the parameters, the Diffie-Hellman parameters curve, key exchange, and this is the symmetric key encryption that is happening between the client and the server. Very common thing, top of the line, secure, all that jazz. If you notice, the protocol that was negotiated is H2, right? Understandably so, because we're going to find out that they're going to use a server sent event, and it's a good idea to use HTTP forward server sent events, because those can take a long time to get back. Sort of SSE is just a request response, but the response is almost very long. That's what an SSE really is. It's a fancy request response, but the response is just broken up into multiple logical messages that the client parses. But what happens is effectively to the client, HTTP client, it's just a request response. So using HTTP 1.1 is not a good idea, because you're occupying a connection, and you have up to 6 connections of HTTP 1.1, at least in Chrome, right? So HTTP 2 is a good idea. But you're gonna also learn that they have an alternative service header. They support HTTP 3, and I don't know why my Chrome didn't actually pick HTTP 3. Probably something I did, because I tweaked this. There's so many configuration I did to the Chrome, I forgot what I did. So probably HTTP 3 might have been disabled, or might be for a good reason the client decided not to use HTTP 3, right? So it is available effectively, especially that the front end is actually Cloudflare, and Cloudflare pretty much support everything latest. So they do that, and that's how you advertise the HTTP 3 endpoint, right? Because you can't do it through ALPN, application layer protocol negotiation, of course, because that's TCP, and of course HTTP 3 is quick, which is UDP. All right, so let's continue. We went through the connections. Nothing fancy here. All of this stuff is boring. It's like fetch the page, get all that stuff. So because we're using HTTP 2, you're gonna notice that the connection ID is always the same. It's always one connection, right? Except for this one, of course, because it's a completely different connection. I'm not gonna go through this. This is basically Cloudflare's CAPTCHA stuff, right? But it's always 1647. That's all what we're gonna use. The beauty of reusing an existing connection, that's the beauty of HTTP 2, of course, right? Just all of these guys, and another thing you will notice is, especially, I think I can do that, right? Right. Another thing you're gonna notice is all of these requests are sent at the same time, right? And the beauty of this concurrency is because each of these guys are actually its own stream, right, in the connection. So it's an HTTP2 stream, which is, I believe the client side is an odd number, right? So it will be like 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on, right? And all of them are just sent. And the maximum, I believe, it's configurable up to 200. You can make more. Of course, the more streams you send, of course, the more work the server has to do to assemble all these streams, right? All right, let's get back. All right, we did all that stuff. What we're downloading here, just a bunch of fonts, right? Nothing fancy. And here's where the actual JavaScript is being downloaded. It's still static stuff, right? And again, this is where all of them actually go and download all of them, right? At the same time here, or the JavaScript. And once the last JavaScript is downloaded, here's where we actually start seeing the actual fancy request. So I'm gonna filter this by just doing that. Cool. So the first useful request is, so the session includes information about me, right? And I think I can effectively show this. It's like, I might hide some of this stuff from you guys, like the access token. I mean, it's already broken down, so already hidden. Good luck guessing that is already temporary. But part of this is the OAuth authentication, right? So I have cookies, which I think they include the refresh token. And when I typed in chat.openGPT.com, it sent those cookies with a refresh token, and it gave me an access token, right? And that's what I'm going to use for authentication, right? As temporary. And I'm going to generate a new one every whatever, right? And this is my ID. This is my email. It's already public, so it's fine. And so I think really hide it. Especially, maybe I'll hide this user ID because I have no idea what's the ramification of exposing that. So I'm going to hide the user ID. And then we have the conversations endpoint, which is basically a list all your conversations, because you see every time you create a new chat, it creates a conversation, a unique conversation for you. It has a unique ID, and all the stuff you do in that conversation goes into its own state. And it's interesting that you can see that when they post this, what is a get? It's actually a get. When they get this Backend API conversations offset 0.20, they're actually using some sort of paging. So you can do an offset of 0 and they limit 20. I talked about how not good of an idea using offset is. Especially, I don't know, I have no idea what the backend here really is. Of course, we don't know. But if it's like a relational database, and this is an actual SQL offset, if that table is massive and there's so many conversations, and you keep scrolling, the offset, if the offset is so large, the query is going to get slower and slower and slower. And the reason is because offset in SQL actually reads all the data, all the rows up until that offset in order to find a row, because you see the row are not fixed sized, right? Some rows are small, some rows are big, so the DB has to read everything in order to find a logical row, right? And then discard it until it finds the offset you want to go. It's probably not a big deal, to be honest. Let's be honest. Let's be a little bit practical here and pragmatic. How many conversations are you gonna create? Not many, right? And probably these conversations are filtered by user. So what you're gonna need to pull are so tiny anyway that you're not gonna need that, unless you did something like really bad, like you created like 1 million conversations for yourself, for example, and then you did like an offset 900,000. Then you're gonna start feeling that would be a nice exercise. Don't do it. but that won't, the backend won't be happy with you if you do that. They're probably gonna API limit you anyway. So, but yeah, so that's the offset here. That's interesting. So you can see that I got back the response. I have 4 conversations, and they use GUID or everything. Sorry, UUIDs. Yeah. So these are random. Is it a big deal using UUID? It's an ongoing conversation, really. There's no wrong or right. It really depends. Here, when you want to look up, we're looking up one thing. That's fine. But I don't think creating like how many users do we have in ChatGPT right now? Like 1 million now, or 1.5 million, I think. If all of them, all the messages that are creating are actually persisted, and we're going to learn that the messages also has a UUID, and also all the conversations, then the database must be really hammered because of the random access, right? I talked about how Shopify recently moved from random UUID to ULID, the lexically ordered identifier, so that they get better, tail performance for their page retrievals and inserts. So I have JavaScript HTTP request, and we're gonna learn how this title is generated. When I learned, it's like, okay, that's clever, the way they generate the title. I don't know if you noticed, but if you generate a new chat, you don't actually get a name for that chat. They name it for you. And the way they name it, they actually use ChatGPT to name it, which is clever. So these are the IDs, title, creation time, some metadata, nothing fancy. And of course, it tells you, okay, offset limit, and then the total is this. We have 16. Do I have 16 conversations? No way. I don't remember creating 16. Maybe they are the old ones. Oh, don't you delete my old one? I'm pretty sure I had clear conversations. Apparently, they don't delete everything. All right. Then there's like this massive Pika.js, which I think has some sort of a model here. Then there is this, which I'm not really an AI guy. I don't know anything about AI or models or ChatGPT or GPT-3 or anything like that. But I Googled, fancy enough, I should have asked ChatGPT, but I'm still old school. I Googled actually what text DaVinci 002 render, and probably anyone in the chat who is kind of adept in AI modeling and let us know. Apparently text DaVinci, so text, they have the 4 models, you know, the weakest one, the straightforward one, the capable one, and the most capable one, which is the one we're using. Text DaVinci 003 was released like literally last month, right? And this is where suppose like 4,000 tokens, and it was trained up to June 2021, right? So it doesn't know anything after June 2021. So I don't ask it anything after that, doesn't know. And this is 003. What we're using is actually 002, right? Apparently, that's what we're using. And the exact number of tokens is 4,097. I didn't know what a token is. Apparently, it's not a word exactly, but it's like a combination of words and characters that mean something in AI. Again, I'm not an AI guy. So yeah. So that's what we're using. We're using this definition. So probably this is the client asking the server, what models are you supporting, right? It's a GET request, give me your models, and it's a response says, hey, use this model, 002. So now the client will know to always send on each request, this is the slug I'm going to use. What the heck is a slug? All right, so let's go ahead and clear this now, and let's actually start using ChatGPT. So we have 4 chats. I'm going to use this. Let's create a new chat, brand new. When I create a new chat, it's failing for some reason, right? Oh, look at that. It seems like there is a time. If you stay idle for a while, you get that error, that forbidden error. Maybe the access token get expired. That's that's what I'm thinking. That means the access token is so short, such that it's being regenerated. So this tells the client, hey, your access token is bad. So if I do it again, yeah, I'm stuck now. Hi, yeah, I'm stuck. So my access token is bad. So what I'm gonna do is actually refresh to get a new access token. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. Now you like it? Now we're going to do this. All right. But that's odd. You would think that the client side would actually just request a new access token. No? Doesn't seem like a nice user experience to forces me to refresh. I may be wrong, but I do talk a lot. So, all right. So this is the same thing, just refresh, getting the actual conversation. So the act of me clicking new chat doesn't actually seem to create a new chat on the server side. Yes, it is actually creating a new entry, seems like it, right? Does it? I don't think it does. It's not doing anything. It's just making a request to fetch the current number of conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, new chat, just create a new chat. And then I'm going to say, hi. All right. Now to the good stuff. That's what we're looking at. Conversation. So we sent a conversation. So we said, hi. It says, hello, how can I help you? Right? We sent a post request to this conversation API. And we told the request header. We said, hey, I'm expecting an event stream, which is a stream of content based on the request I'm going to send, right? That's what server sent event here. Here's the thing. The response that we got, the content type is actually text event stream. But if you click on event stream, there is nothing. And I was surprised when I saw that. Well, if you're using server sent event and it's an event stream, the devtools will try to read it. But apparently, devtools will only read it if you actually use the API EventSource, the browser API EventSource, which I believe ChatGPT do not use. They rolled out their own SSE library, which is not hard. What is it? It's just sending a request and just reading a stream of responses. That's what it is, really. Like a single response that is broken up by their own tokens effectively, and that's how they do it. So it's not, doesn't show here. It's probably for a good reason they did it this way. Performance, maybe the way they are doing it, like when you ask it a question, it will type as it receives some information, it will just type it in. And the way they want it is like in event stream, like in SSE, you have to write back a /n/r to actually end the message, to send a message, right? They didn't want to do that. Maybe they use their own token somehow, special character token that they parse on the local side. That's my guess, I think, because otherwise you cannot do something fancy like that, right? So as a result, we really can't know what they sent back, right? Unless we do like man in the middle and proxy or fiddler or something like that to actually sniff on the response. But let's take a look at the payload. The payload, we get the messages. And here's the thing, right? Every message you sent is uniquely tagged, and the client side creates this ID, and that's the unique identifier. So my client ID is 80, right? And I wanted to notice also each message that you send is also tagged with the parent message ID. And my guess, this hierarchical link is for them to actually link back messages in the same conversation, so that if I ask it something like 1 + 1 = 3, I saw people trolling ChatGPT all the time. So like, how much is 1 + 1? And it says, oh, 1 + 1 is 2. And then you say, oh no, that's wrong. And then how does ChatGPT knows that, oh, that's wrong actually is referring to the message prior to it, right? It's not a stateless thing. It is stateless, but it's kind of linked to each other. Now each message is actually sent with a link to the message before it, so that ChatGPT will know that, oh, you're referring to that, right? And of course, once you get this message, you get the message before it and before it and before it and so on, right? You get a link of chain of messages. And of course, they're sending the model that we actually asked for. It's pretty, I absolutely love this API. It's a clean API. I have no idea what the role user mean. It's like, is there like another role? And of course the content, it's a text and parts, like what kind of parts here? I always seen one part, always an array with one large string. I never seen this becomes back more than one. Right? All right, what else? Then we asking for the conversation again. And then I want you to notice now, did you see that? This changed at some point while we're talking, greeting and help, right? So what actually triggered that change? We're gonna find out. So, okay, again, it requested the number of conversations. You're gonna see that this is a recurrence. Every time it's gonna refresh the conversations. Then there is this thing. It's called moderation, and it's an interesting thing. What happens here is like every time you send a message, the client send a moderation call with the message ID, right? This tells me that messages must be persisted, at least for a certain period of time, right? This tells me like this is really choosing UUIDs. I don't know if it's a good idea, to be honest, because in lookup, if you have like a massive database that is scalable, sure, but that database is not doing very well, in my opinion, with all these random GUIDs, and you can't, they have these random UUID has no relation to each other. It's not like you're gonna sort it or make meaning of it. It's all random. I suppose you can actually, what they can do? They can make the messages dependent on the conversations, right? Such that the conversation ID, they link this with the message. So the messages that are generated actually have some sort of order. Because if you pulling a message, you most likely going to pull the related message in the same conversation. And if this is all random, you're going to hit like random pages left and right. And that obviously it was going to result to random IOs, and we don't like random IOs in databases, right? All right, so yeah, I can't think of a way that this is going to be scalable GUIDs and messages. It depends like how long they're storing these messages, of course, right? All depends. It's going to be interesting to go to like a very old conversation and tries to load it. See a performance. Of course, they can throw hardware into the problem and never look back. It's OpenAI after all. Yeah. This is just moderating. Say, hey, just moderate this. Just check this message for me. Is it good? I think that's what it is, right? And you're gonna see that this moderation is gonna be sent for almost every message. Even the responses are moderated. So, for example, there's another moderation message here. It's actually moderating the conversation ID. Always, you send me the conversation ID and the message. So it's good that they're sending both. This will definitely limit. Probably this is indexed, right? And once you find this, the things that you're gonna search for are really tiny. You just really nailed the conversations, because that's what we're searching for effectively, right? So, and the messages will be inside, but finding the messages is going to be truly random, right? Because they have no order per se. It's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to see how the database looks like. Really interested. But the performance is not bad, right? Like, I don't know how many users are there currently, but performance seems good. Yeah. Sorry, I'm going so deep into this thing. All right, so this is what I'm talking about, the title thing. So you can call conversations, generate title, and then you give it the, I suppose this is the conversation ID, EDF, right? Yes, EDF is my conversation ID. You give it the conversation ID, right? So that's /conversation ID. And in that, you send the message ID, one of the messages, I suppose, and then it will generate for you a greetings, right? Or a title. So greetings and help request. And that exactly what it, can I expand that? Suppose I can't. That's what it names this, right? Can't believe we just asked it one question and it was hi. What a lame way of using that. You should see what people do with ChatGPT, really. Like they are squeezing everything out of this thing. I mean, they make me, feel like a formal. It's like real. It's like, okay, I'm doing something wrong because I don't know how to use this thing. All right. So let's actually send something, ask it something legit, right? Can you write JavaScript code client-side JavaScript code for server-sent events without using the EventSource browser client library? God damn it, ChatGPT. Seriously, again, my token was expired. Yeah, it was again forbidden. Come on, dude. All right. Here's a refresh. I was like, what was like 10 minutes? Is that a limit? I even lost my question. What a bad user experience. You should have saved that at least. I guess you can't because I just lost my access token, right? So you can't even tell me. Like I guess you can't tell the backend to save it because you lost it, right? So it wasn't ever sent. But come on, man, just refresh the access token automatically for me. Sheesh. Can you write a client-side JavaScript code to do server-sent events without using the EventSource browser library? Let's see, because that's what they are doing, right? They're not using the EventSource, yet they're doing. Sure, here is an example of how you. Okay, nice. So you're gonna use a XML HTTP request because it's $19.99, right? All right. Oh, look at that. That's impressive. God damn it, that is impressive. Look at that. Okay. So it actually understood what I want. So it sent a set request header. So I'm expecting an event stream. This script open an HTTP connection to the server request indicate once the server set events of this stream. All right. So the new data is logged. All right. So when I get the data, it's going to be logged, right? Okay. Let's see. Can you rewrite that using fetch? Now, if you think about it, if I say that out of context, it will have no idea what I'm talking about. But because when I send that request and I look at this, it actually sends the parent message ID, right? Which is 32, which is that guy. So it knows what I'm talking about, right? Sure, here's an example of how you can use fetch to set up a client-side JavaScript to receive without EventSource browser library. Good job. I suppose it's the... Oh, that's what I wanted to know. Okay, I was like, wanted to like how they are gonna read that context. So instead of actually using response.json or response.text, you have to establish a stream reader like that, and then just read the stream normally. My God, this is definitely a game changer, man. This thing, ChatGPT, right? Of course, you gotta verify what is it doing, right? I hate copy and pasting code. I have to understand what it's doing. So the way we're used to using fetch API is we're gonna use like the response.json, which effectively reads everything and then makes it a pretty JSON object so you can interact with, or .text, which basically converts it to text. But now this is what we need to do in order to stream the content. So that is what ChatGPT is using. That is brilliant. That is, and they pipe this to the writable stream, and then you can do whatever. In this case, you just console log it. Right? Of course, this is, seems like XML is so simpler, right? Right? But I wonder if this, when are we gonna get this called? Right? Is it when the whole event is finished, or is it like trickle? Because if you want to trickle, you have to do a stream like this. It's like, okay, whenever you get something, dot, 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 right? That's because that's how they work, right? All right. So one final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the feedback thing. So I'm going to like this message right now. If you like it, what you're going to notice is there's always like a failure here. I noticed. Because it goes to another connection altogether. That explains the rainbow colors here, right? I keep calling the rainbows different colors, that's what I mean, right? So it's a different new connection to a different domain altogether, right? And here's it shows up now, that different domain, TS 1.3, same thing. It's in just a Centauri.io. I have no clue what that is, right? And then what they do is they just message feedback, you know? So this is called the message feedback API, the backend API. Message feedback doesn't get any cleaner than this API, dude. I absolutely love it. It's so clean. So you send that, the conversation ID, the message ID, of course. Can you just send the message ID? That's not enough. It works. Of course, you can find it, but that will kill the performance. They send both so that they can make the selectivity in the database level on the query as small as possible. Because as high as possible, that means that the result set is as small as possible, right? So that's what that's their trick. But again, because this is random and everybody has a random conversation, you're going left and right in pages. Some GUIDs are in the first. Again, I'm kind of assuming their database. I'm assuming as if their database is like a clustered primary key based database like MySQL. That's what I'm talking about. In that case, that's not a good idea because the GUIDs have to be ordered per clustered, right? In that case, because it's a primary key. in that particular case, then the query will suffer because you're going to do random reads left and right. So your buffer pool will eventually filled up because you're fetching pages and trashing pages left and right. So what they probably doing, their buffer pool is massive, right? Their shared memory buffer pool is massive. You might say, Hussein, what if they used normal numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, and those numbers actually have meaning? Probably not as bad. People who create conversations that are temporally next to each other, right? Or maybe time-based kind of IDs. If people create conversations or messages that are temporally next to each other, then chances that those will be in the same data page on the backend are very, very high, right? Because you created them at the same time. So the more I think about it, the TLID is actually a better idea for them. I'm saying that, and I'm actually assuming it is not a ULID, right? What is ULID? Like, this is what I'm talking about, right? The canonical spec of ULID. That's what I'm talking about. Universally unique lexically sortable identifier. So they look sorted like this, right? And are these sorted? I don't see anything sorted about these guys, right? So if I say, like, this is how you submit, by the way, his thumbs up, right? And if you type something, great answer, and then they say submit, right? They send another message, right? And then you can send tags if you want. Tags are only applicable if you like thumbs down. It's like, okay, harmful. This is like this robot's trying to kill us, something like that. Right? And great answer, the text. So that's how you do it. Yeah. So are these messages at all ordered? So let's like another message. Right? If I do that, 831. They have no clue. Nope, has nothing to do with random, right? So they will definitely, I think there is a benefit of using ULID in messages because messages are absolutely time-based, right? How often are you going to go back to old conversations and read old messages? No, you're always going to read, you create new messages and you're going to read those new messages. You're going to refresh a page, you're going to read conversations on the same page. So I absolutely think OpenID will benefit largely from using ULIDs in their messages. Not much conversation, right? The conversation can't stay UUID or change it to ULID, who cares? Right, but messages definitely, because messages are temporally next to each other. So I think that's a fantastic idea, right? Finally, I'm gonna show you a little code I wrote. I want to see what happens if I let two ChatGPTs talk to each other. You know, it's like, okay, you just go and talk to each other. So what I did is I wrote a little bit of a JavaScript, and this is the JavaScript I wrote that basically deletes the body, right? Which basically that same page just deletes the whole body element and then adds my own body, which is a bunch of frames with new chat GPTs next to each other, right? And then just reads one, types a question in the first one. The answer from the first chat GPT I paste it in the other one, and then vice versa. I let them chat with each other. It's so hilarious. So let's go ahead and hit that. I'll share with you the code if you're interested. But this is what it does. So yeah. So this is what you get, right? And the reason I did it in the same page, because of course, right? Of course. Course is a cross-origin resource sharing, because you can't do this in any other browser, right? So I asked it a question, ask me a random question. And of course, the code kicks in to title the page. Look at this. It's almost like a mobile view. It's interesting because it's tiny. So what is the process of photosynthesis in planet, right? I wait like a minute before I send the request to the other page, but eventually it will send it. So what will happen is, and that's one reason. And there is other reason to use in the same domain is basically the cookies, right? The cookies will never be sent in any other domain other than OpenAI.com, right? And maybe even chat.openai.com. And here's the question. So I took this, What is this? And I say, answer this and ask me a random question. So what is the process of photosynthesis in a plant? Photosynthesis in a plant, right? Yeah, photosynthesis is the process of which greens, blah, 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 converts light energy to chemical energy. And then it asks, what's your favorite sport? So I parse the response here, right? And the response is like a bunch of paragraphs, right? So I have to find the last message and then find the last paragraph, which is basically the question. And I take that question and I ask the first one, right? And of course, now it asks me a personal question. The ChatGPT will say, really, I'm just an AI, wink, wink. It acts like it doesn't have emotions, of course. And it will say, hey, no, I don't have a favorite sport. But yeah, I'm going to leave it for a second here. God damn it. The access token broke again. But you get the point, right? God damn it. So trying again. I cleared the conversations. What is the capital of France, right? So it says, okay, the capital of France is Paris. What is your favorite type of food? Now, it's a personal question. Although I told it, ask me a random question. I should have asked, ask me a non-personal question, I suppose. Maybe I should change the code to do that. Because once I ask it like this personal question, it's weird about that. Exactly. As a language model, I do not have any blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. Then it goes back to ask about this photosynthesis in plants. It's as if this question is somehow cached in the server side, because I cleared the conversations, all right? And then it goes back and asks this guy, photosynthesis, like blah, 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 algae and bacteria. It goes on. Right, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the light energy. And then ask, okay, it's going on. What is the most interesting thing you learned today? It's asking itself, right? Go ahead and ask yourself now. There you go. What is the most interesting? As a language, I do not. I don't what? Are you going to say you do not learn? I do not experience time, so I cannot answer this question. How can I provide you? And then it asks, what is the process of nuclear fusion and how it is used in nuclear power plant? And then it goes on. It goes on. And sometimes the conversation gets into a loop, right? Right, where they keep asking this, like, how can I help you? No, how can I help you? Okay. All right, this exercise is useful. Oh, really? It's going more interesting this time. This is the further I ever got. What is the role of enzymes in living organism? Okay, talk to each other, learn from each other. Robot. Enzymes are biological catalysts. And then it says, what is the difference between the 3 states of matter? Oh, this is getting interesting. Look at all these exciting things, man. Well, these robots teaching each other. The 3 states of matter are solid, liquid, or gas. A solid, the liquid has. all right. Okay, I'll stop it. But I'll share the code. Okay. What is the most important invention? One more thing. What is the most important invention in human history? Well, I don't know. The computer. It is a subjective question. And it can vary depending on the perspective. I agree. What is the difference between a meteoroid, and a meteoropid? Okay, this is actually getting really interesting. I never got this far. All right, answer this and then ask me a random question. All right. I'm gonna stop it. That's it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for. If you reach this side, this is a long video, but I learned a lot from going through this stuff, and I'm going to share the code for you if you're interested. Right? And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.